Hello there, and thanks for tuning in. This is another update of the most recent book that I'm working on, the current book I'm working on. This is a video series that really is targeted more towards fellow creatives, people that are creating anything. And it's a discussion about that, not just about promoting my upcoming book, but kind of what I'm going through as a writer, as a storyteller, as a creator. And this, as I'm recording this, is August of 2024, which is the 25th anniversary of the first documentary I did, the first paranormal project I ever did. Voices from the Grave is what it was called. Later, a book came out, Voices from the Chicago Grave. But yeah, this is just looking at the life and struggles and accomplishments of a creative person as the project is ongoing. And I wanted to touch on something that came up actually with a friend of mine who is writing a book as well right now. And they're having some, I don't want to say difficulty, but they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves, even in the pre-writing stage, which I'm a nerd for pre-writing. The fact that I can say that shows what caliber of nerd I am, because I really love to pre-create everything. And whether it's a screenplay, it's a movie. I mean, in film, I work as an assistant director. I used to work as an assistant director, which is where you make the whole movie in paper first, where you kind of schedule it all out and you kind of know when you're going to need every different element. And that's exciting to me. I don't know what it is, but it satisfies something within me of just the pre-planning. So I told my friend that, yeah, I made my outline in advance, which I had a lot of fun doing, and I got started writing. And as I began writing, I kept having to go back and adjust my outline and to work on more things, to adjust it, but also to add to it. And that alone was a little bit of a weight off her shoulders. She thought, oh, I can change my outline after I started. I just did kind of somehow had that mental block that I have to create an outline and then that's set in stone and I can't go back, which obviously is not how that is, but we get in our own way a lot. And my outline, which is the backbone to everything. And again, the thing I had fun creating, at a certain point not long ago, it became a big obstacle. It began feeling a little bit suffocating to me until I went back and really reworked it a lot. So let's take a quick look. And we're not going to do a deep dive on this. My previous video from last October, I did a very deep dive on my outline. Probably talked about it too much. But if anybody's really interested in ghost stories and want a sneak preview about the ghost stories that I'm going to tell, that video is worth watching. Okay, so now let's go take a look at my outline, which I love working by putting things up on the wall. And we're not going to, like I said, we're not going to go deep dive here. But what started out, as you'll see in the previous video, as pretty extensive outline has grown quite a bit as my vision for what the book is going to be has grown quite a bit. Getting back to the book, what it is, it's looking back at being a ghost storyteller for the last 25 years and all the creative jobs that took me from A to B and how ghost stories were interwoven. Actually, specifically, the quote I used was, "To know me, you need to know my ghost stories." So at first I have these bold things, bold sections here. Resurrection Mary, that was really a legendary Chicago ghost story that kicked off my interest in learning about the paranormal. And then it kicked off also doing my first documentary. So that ghost story is what inspired the next bit of creativity. And so at first I really thought that, okay, I need to have these benchmark moments that are ghost stories and then the creative projects that connected in between those ghost stories. And as I started to write it out, I would see that, oh my gosh, there's really great ghost stories and I don't have enough creative projects here in the middle. And then I got to a certain point that, oh my gosh, well, now I'm out of school and I'm working in film and I'm learning a lot. And I want to have my creative journey in there as somebody that's working on movies or TV shows, all of these creative projects I've worked on. But maybe there's not so much of the ghost stories in there. And in a lot of cases there are. So, I worked on sound stages that had ghost stories associated with it. Culver Studios is the first one that comes to mind, but I worked on Paramount, the Paramount lot, and there are a lot of different places have ghost stories. And of course, one of the first jobs I had, an early job, I should say, in Los Angeles, I worked on a short film that shot at Linda Vista Hospital, which ended up being the most haunted building I've ever been in. So yeah, there's a lot of places where the creative project and the ghost story is the same thing. And eventually, coming down to create this big project about the Crosse Drownings in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and the paranormal investigations that try to explain them. That is another case where there's a creative project and a paranormal project right on top of each other. I started to get into my head too much, that there wasn't enough balance here or there between the creative projects and the ghost stories that I wanted to tell. And eventually I had to let that go. I had to get rid of the idea that, okay, when I'm looking at my own outline and when people are going to be looking eventually at the table of contents, that, okay, the ghost stories are going to be in bold and the creative stories are going to be this other way. Oh, and then also I want to just give slice of life type stuff, type information to show what I was going through just in general as a human being on planet Earth at this different age and stage of my life. So those don't really fit in. That doesn't really fit into anything, but it still provides color to everything. To some extent, I wanted to be able to talk about what media I was taking in that inspired me. And I'm not going to do a lot of that because otherwise I'd just be doing massive essays on how awesome the TV show The Office was, or Parks and Rec. But I still do want to touch on that kind of stuff because that also sets time, and it's part of the setting of my life at that point, what I was taking in. So, how do I differentiate all this? How do I make it visible and clear? And I just got too in my head about it. So I decided I just have to let all that go. Certain headings are there, like, okay, semester in LA. The first time I lived in Los Angeles, lessons I learned about pitching my first screenplay, which was a mafia script based on a true story out of Northern Illinois. Working at Revolution Studios, HBO Films. Great story about the day the Triple X trailer was released, which was a Revolution Studios thing. Working on Daddy Daycare, Hollywood Homicide. So again, a lot of creative stuff there. Hopefully a lot of interesting stories, lessons learned type stuff there too. But then also, while I'm out there doing all that, that's the first time I ever went to Hollywood Forever Cemetery. And that's a cemetery that, of course, is very famous, has lots of ghost stories about it. And that all kind of fits under the heading of semester in LA, which was Columbia College, or Chicago, where I went. Also, of course, that's not even mentioned here, but that's when I first met Max Tim, who ended up being, one of my best friends and also my partner on the podcast, the Fantastic Story Society, which that comes up way down here. So adding all of these little things, this is not for anybody else to see, except for in this video here. This is just to keep me on target. Things that I don't want to forget about. I want to mention this, or this. These all aren't full chapters, but they might be a section within a chapter. There might be a couple of sections within a certain chapter. But yeah, this once fairly short outline is now 7 pages long, 1.5 space. So not quite double spaced, and it's still 7 pages, full pages long. And also I know that I'm really detailed up here about the things that I'm going to be talking about, because I'm writing about this stuff now. The stuff down here is very, very loose at this point. And I know as my mind gets into this area, this time period in my life, this is going to get much more elaborate and much bigger. So right now, as we lock this in time, it's 7 pages long, but it's going to get much bigger. And again, this is all just the pre-writing. This is all for me. It's a tool for myself. And it is also really neat to see it. I always love to be able to visualize what I'm working on in whatever way I can. But also I can see now, oh, wait a minute, I wrote this thing here, but I remember that happened when I was doing this. So something that I know got in my way was that I was not good on the chronology, which is so funny. You're reconstructing your life, basically, talking about your life as a storyteller. And of course, my life is about telling stories. But yeah, it was actually kind of difficult to remember the order of operations on a lot of things. You might see all of this and say, okay, this is 7 pages and just bullet points, already 7 pages long. How in the world could this be one book? How thick is this book going to be? And that brings me to my big announcement, I guess, on this video. My outline, as I see it now, the more I look at it, the more I even am second guessing this. But I believe we're looking at 3 books here. 25 years of telling stories and working in the world of trying to be a creative. There's a lot of stories and a lot of life lessons learned, a lot of wonderful people that have entered my life that I want to have the opportunity to celebrate how wonderful they are, how meaningful they are to me, and what an important presence they are in this world. In addition to telling these stories, and some of these stories are so in depth, so much history, so much ghost story lore. I mean, they're big, a lot of these stories, and on there, they're just one little blurb, 2 to 4 words. But to make those 2 to 4 words a book, they're going to end up being 20 pages. Hopefully I can keep it less than that. But also, I want to just be able to be free with my writing. Keep it interesting, keep it fun. That's also a big thing. I need to make sure that my voice keeps coming out. And that's something that I'm telling myself over and over again, that if I get too in the weeds of getting just fact to fact to fact, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, I lose my voice a lot. I might tell the story well, but I wanted to keep that entertaining liveliness that is, what we all are trying to bring in. We all have our own unique voices and perspectives. So that, there's going to be another polish where I go back and purely I'm going to be looking at that. But I'm trying to do as much of that as possible right off the bat as well. I'm looking at it as 3 books. So book 1, which is deeply underway right now, it takes me from 25 years ago this month, shooting and releasing my first ever paranormal documentary, going through college, getting out of college, going to Hawaii. And of course, breaking into film in Hawaii, a lot of Hawaiian lore. And that, I think, is going to be book number 1. And that also includes that semester in LA time that I talked about, which is part of college for me. So some LA stories in there as well. A lot of Illinois stories, a lot of Hawaii stories, and a lot of production stories, because I worked on, Forgetting Sarah Marshall and Lost and Flight 29 Down. I should have said that one first because that was probably the most important one to me. But the first thing I ever worked on, Tides of War, this made-for-TV movie. But wow, I learned so much on that production. I met so many wonderful people on that a lot of that sticks with me. And this is this 3-week-long production that I don't know how many people have seen or even heard of that movie. But I mean, it's still out there. I see it pop up on TV every so often. But still, it's not as high profile as some of these other things. And then book 2 will be coming back from Hawaii. I guess I don't know exactly where this breakoff will be. Will it be, coming back from Hawaii and continuing to work and film a lot? Worked on Batman, Dark Knight, Batman, worked on Stranger Than Fiction, a lot of those other productions. But of course, whether I was in Hawaii, I was learning about the Night Marchers and different types of cultural beliefs out there compared to the mainland, and a bigger openness to talking about the paranormal, which was very cool. And then coming back to Chicago, and while working on these other productions, learning more Midwestern stories, whether it's in Chicago, in the suburbs, in Minnesota. I was doing a lot of, regional travel at that time. But so at some point, the break to book 2 happens where I go out to LA. And I mean, that's, again, everything from creating the LA ghost tour that is still up and running to this day. So much was learned. I was giving ghost tours past the Cecil Hotel, talking about the Cecil Hotel as the Elisa Lam case was unfolding. So that's this whole new huge chapter of the weird paranormal history of this building was being written as I was in a van outside with 15 strangers telling the legends and lore of the Cecil Hotel, working on other movies, other TV shows, getting other life experience, other production experience, other storytelling experience. Anytime I'm talking about production, it's really not just say that, hey, here's this cool movie I worked on. It's learning about the storytelling process at these different levels from these different other amazing creators. I mean, Stranger Than Fiction was directed by Mark Forrester, who is just a tremendous storyteller. And of course, DJ McHale was the creator of Flight 29 Down. I got to work with him for 3 years. A guy that inspired me when I was a kid. Then I was working alongside him, and he's continued to be a friend. Learned so much from him. He was definitely, I still consider him quite the mentor. So we have the big block of time in LA, which ended with working with the International Screenwriters Association, where I still work. And I do have to give a shout out to my boss a little bit, because he encouraged me to do some new things, to live stream storytelling, to do these trailer reaction videos that my co-host Max Tim and I are doing right now. So, hey, if you like movies in general and want to hear the 2 dweebs from Fantastic Story Society review trailers, that's something that you can watch now. By the way, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked, but I forgot to mention just all the other creating that I'm doing while I'm doing this. And not to at all boast about it, but I'm doing a series. I'm trying to put an episode up every other week called Positively Paranormal, where we tell ghost stories. And that's coming directly out of me writing the book and doing these deep dives for my book on these different topics, these different locations. But then I want to talk about them more. So I'm doing that on Positively Paranormal, where I'm sharing some of these stories right then and there, including asking questions, because what I learned, and as will come out in the book, you create anything, even what I'm doing right now, you're putting yourself out there. You're finding people with similar interests. You become assets to one another, where a friendship might form, might not, might just be some comments left behind between a couple of people talking, but you are supporting each other. You are sharing information. You are encouraging each other, even if it's in a really small way. And you don't think about leaving a positive comment in that way, but that is what's happening. But working with the ISA, in addition to just having a whole new level of my storytelling world, of my interviewing world, because I traveled all across America for years, doing red carpet interviews and learning how to, and I've always been a fan of interviewing people. The journalism side of me is actually, I think, the beginning of my storytelling life, going back to being on the newspaper staff in high school. But working red carpets to get people's stories out and these sound bites and these snippets, there's a lot to be learned right there. And there's a lot of great stories, of course, that come out of that as well. Not to mention that I'm traveling around the country, and every time I go somewhere new, I look up, well, what's the good local legend here? What's the folklore of this town? And because of that, I've visited even more crazy, weird, unique places that I wouldn't have thought to look up, except that I was suddenly landed here because this town has a film festival. And now, after I'm done at the film festival, I want to go to whatever the creepy location in town is. And then finally, chapter 3, coming back to the Midwest, learning a lot more local legends, but again, traveling, lots of road trips, so many road trips over the last several years of me being in town here, that have taken me across the American Southeast, the South, Texas especially. And that's thanks to being at first dating and then engaged to and then married to a wonderful person who is in an awesome rock band that goes on tour. And I've been able to sneak into the tour van every so often. I just have to haul some gear and I get to see some cool places and discover even more great stories. But the production side is still there because we've shot a music video at a haunted mansion in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. A place with great stories. And yes, weird stuff happened while we were shooting. You know, I used to say when I was outside the Formosa Cafe as we were starting the ghost tour, the bus tour that I did for so long, my production life and my paranormal life have just continued to run against each other, to bump into each other. And that continues to be true. And in a big way, that is what this book is about. And on the topic of being a creative working in this world, this digital world that we're in, last time I did one of these, I talked about maybe I would start a Kickstarter, and I'm not going to do that. And this next section, it might sound like a sales pitch, but it's absolutely not, because you don't even have a chance to sign up for anything yet. But I just want to bring this up as a dialogue with other creators. I am looking at, and I've been working on creating a Patreon. So not a Kickstarter, but a Patreon, because a Kickstarter is just for that one project and then it's done. I've always really been excited about and interested in creating community. And Patreon is, by definition, a community. It's been a lot of fun thinking about how to do it so it doesn't feel like I am trying to run a merch store or that I'm trying to move product, that I'm creating more work for myself than it is fun. Is it going to be counterproductive? Because yes, I'm trying to raise money to make this book or to make more videos, but I'm going to have to do all of these things that are the rewards. Well, for one, it's been a lot more fun than I was expecting, working on these ideas. At the heart of it, I want it to be about community. So it's going to be about having these monthly hangout sessions. It'll be about, hey, we just booked so-and-so for a Fantastic Story Society episode. Send me your questions and I'll ask them on your behalf. Maybe we'll do even more fun access related things. Also, I do have to thank my original illustrator, Mary Goodflesh, who is on Patreon, and she's a prolific creator, prolific artist, wonderful sense of humor, and it comes out in her art so intensely. But she was the one that showed me also that you can have a free level of Patreon, because I'm the type of person that is just uncomfortable asking for money, for funds, anything like that. But know that there is a free level that you can do, which there will be a free level, and there will always be a free level. But I do know also that sometimes people really want to support you, and far be it from me to say no to that. So there will be paid levels as well. And again, none of this is live yet, so this isn't even the pitch, but just to other creatives out there, I'd love to start a conversation about Patreon, how you've used it, what you've liked, what you don't like, what's effective, what isn't. But it went from being this thing that I was afraid to do because I didn't want to look like somebody looking for handouts, to a really fun opportunity to engage with people, which is really what I'm all about. It's what I mean, listen, we're only on this planet for so long. Meet as many wonderful people as you possibly can, right? That's always been at the core of what I try to do with anything I try to do. So in addition to Patreon, I've created a Substack. You can find it. There's literally nothing on it as I'm recording this right now. But again, it's about finding an audience. It's about finding more people to engage with. It's about finding another platform in which to talk to people and to hear their stories and to share information. And so even though these things haven't launched fully yet, I'm excited about what the future might have in store for these different platforms. Lastly, and I'm not even going to say what platform this one is yet, because I don't think anything is technically live yet, but there's a place where you can upload designs and sell shirts, stickers, t-shirts, hats, all that kind of stuff. I have created a store. Nothing is on there yet. I think you can actually buy a sticker or a magnet with this logo on it up here in the corner. I'm going to get more stuff on there before I really announce it. It's exciting for another place to create, because I've had ideas for the longest time and I haven't pursued it. I finally thought, let me just dive in. I'm going to go create a store here and just get one step out of the way. One thing out of the way between me having ideas and then me creating designs that could then be interesting, shirts or whatever. But then that is going to feed into Patreon. And I know Patreon also has a side where you can do merchandising directly through them. I haven't looked into that yet. Speaking of merchandising, back to the book. This will be, in case I haven't mentioned it before, this by design is going to be a self-published book. I self-published my first ever book. And then a few years after that, I pitched it around 2 publishers, and the first place I approached, they wanted it. So fortunately, I didn't have to spend a lot of time trying to make that happen. And then having a publisher on board was really, really excellent back in 2003. The difference between 2003 and now is that bookstores existed in the traditional sense back in 2003. Even then, they were starting to be on the way out, but there were still enough stores out there that having a publisher that had a distribution line in place, it was so helpful that I could go into any bookstore in the region and I could find my book on the shelves. And I wasn't the one that made the phone call or shipped the books. That was really cool. It just doesn't exist that way anymore. Also, I had issues with my publisher that I won't have if I am self-publishing, which, that'll be in the book too. The good and the bad and the lessons learned, honestly. And I do have to give a quick acknowledgement to 2 people that I, just by coincidence, I'm listening to their audiobooks right now. Colin Jost, who you might know from Saturday Night Live, Weekend Update, and also Theroux. From both of them, I picked up books recently that I didn't know were autobiographies when I purchased them, but I have had so much fun listening to them. These 2 authors have a lot to say and a lot of amazing personal experiences, and it has just been such a joy to listen to them, and the casual nature of not only their writing, but what exactly they're talking about has really freed me up to feel more open to sharing more and to maybe being a little bit more personal here or there, or to be a little bit off topic, but still tangential and interesting. And then we get back onto topic. But yeah, I've definitely learned a lot from those 2 guys. And I totally recommend both of their books. And lastly, for creators, I wanted to talk about one other thing that's been just annoying the hell out of me, which is another reason why I'm excited about Substack. I'm excited about Patreon as being opportunities. It's that the almighty algorithm is just chaos. There's nothing that you can do, whether it's YouTube or other social media, where you have a guarantee that you're going to find even your own audience, your own subscribers, which is just so annoying because you can't learn from it either. You can create something, put it out there, and I put so much work into this, and it's so glossy, and it's hitting all the right SEO, and everything is just perfect about it. And then 4 people see it over the course of 4 months. Meanwhile, you can just upload any random thing, and suddenly 1,000 people see it in the first hour it's been published. Why? Like, we'll take those victories when we can. I just looked today, just coincidentally, I was on IMDb, and one of the top trending celebrities in like the top 10 is Summer Glau. Now, I love Summer Glau from Firefly and Knights of Badassdom, but there's no reason. I can't find any reason she's trending. Fortunately, she's not in the news in any negative way, but she also hasn't had a movie or TV show come out since 2021. Why is she trending? Last week, a video that I shot 4 years ago with one of the co-creators of the TV show Lost. And again, over the last 4 years, it was viewed maybe 350 times. Then last week, in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day, 600 people watched it in 1 hour. Why? And there's no answer for why. That's a good reason why I want to do as much as possible on these other platforms that are really specific for an audience that's ready to be engaged all the time. I will always be creating stuff and putting it on YouTube because that's just another place to possibly find more audience. Speaking of that, I tried a little experiment where I took an existing video, which was a video game run through a very realistic 1947 Los Angeles, and I drove around it within the game, but I gave my Hollywood Boulevard ghost tour. I don't know, that video did so-so, as good as anything ever does. But I thought, well, YouTube is putting so much into shorts right now. What if I take this video that already exists and already has existed for the longest time and just cut it into 60-second clips, and then repost all of those individual 60-second clips and see what happens? So let's take a look at that together. My numbers aren't crazy. I've got nothing to hide here. So you see the last video went out about a week ago now. And I can't remember how many there were in total, over 30 for sure though. And this last one, 194 views. Yeah, part 30, there we go. Number 26 got 409 views in the same amount of time. So twice as many. But then at the bottom there, part 24 only got 23 views in its first week. Just no rhyme or reason. Anytime somebody puts a thumbs down on something, it just doesn't make sense to me. Unless the video is completely misleading, like the thumbnail and the title is misleading, I never thumbs down anything. But yeah, we see that there's, I guess, a more engaged audience than I would expect as far as people liking or disliking something. Let's go all the way to the bottom, which is way down here. And actually part 1, which mentions the Black Dahlia, so that could be a trigger there. 415 views. Next one, 147. Next one, 400. And this one mentions Valentino. I can't imagine Valentino's a hot commodity. And then this next one, 17 views. That's so weird. We get to the 400s, 100, and then again, 17. And there's a mention of the Frolic Room. We hashtag Hollywood. I really think that this is just backing up my theory that nothing matters. This one doesn't have any hashtags. It mentions the Lon Chaney bench and the Avalon nightclub. Can't imagine people are really looking for either of those things, but 400 views, 7 likes, 7 for 7 on likes there. Next one also over 400. And then we're back down 20, 40, 17, that magic number 17. I guess this does back up my thought that that nothing does matter. The other big question that I had is, for the longest time, yes, shorts would get big views, but they wouldn't convert to followers, subscribers. So let's take a quick look here. As you see, here's when all of these videos were coming out, beginning of this month. And subscribers, it is chaotic. I don't know why we have a big spike here. And of course, big for me is 4 people. The big thing that I'm happy about, maybe surprised about, we didn't lose anybody. I wasn't sure if any existing subscriber would suddenly see that I'm doing all these video game things and, hey, this isn't what I signed up for. At most, I lost 1. Again, I always feel like losing a subscriber is a good thing, because people that don't like what I'm doing, well, they're not going to be an engaged audience member. It's not going to reflect well on the other statistics on my site, on what I'm doing. So a net gain of 34, which is 9 more than usual. So not a big boost, but a net gain, which is good. Here's the last thing that I was really curious about was what about that original video? Because every single one of these 30 shorts they linked back to the original video. Let's see if I got a boost there at all. And I would really hope that I would. I'm not expecting anything, but I would hope that I would. All right, so here it is. Haunted Hollywood Tour in 1947. Let's see the analytics. See if I got a boost when I did that. And the answer is no. See within it's still just on the bottom portion of the gray shaded area. If you want to say I got a boost, it's going from 117 views to 129, which if I'm posting 30 videos and getting less than 30 people to now watch, it's just making shorts and referencing a core video that it came from just doesn't work out. By all means, if anybody else has any interest in sharing what they are finding on YouTube other than disappointment and heartache, I am really bad at posting on a lot of social media. I should do it more, even though it doesn't necessarily mean I'll get likes or followers or anything like that. To me, it's about getting the right people aware that I'm writing this next book, people that might be interested in this next project. Okay, I want to end off on a story, but I don't know what story that is. A year and a half ago, I did this really fun video where I asked ChatGPT to interview me. I'll do something like that again. I'm gonna give me 5 great questions to ask a ghost hunter. I'll find one of these and see if there's anything interesting here. What is the most compelling evidence I've encountered during an investigation? Oh, wow. And then it explains why it's a good question. I haven't used ChatGPT in about a year and a half. So this is kind of interesting to see if it's improved at all. How do I differentiate between a paranormal occurrence and something that can be explained by natural causes? Can you describe a particularly challenging investigation and how I overcame the obstacles? What equipment do I find most reliable and why? How do I handle skepticism and criticism for those who don't believe in the paranormal? These are all great questions. I'm going to pick the easiest one, probably. That's number 4. However, I do have to point out that last time I did this, the idea of skepticism came up over and over again. So I think ChatGPT comes from a skeptical perspective. What equipment do I find most reliable and why? I like to go as basic as possible. When you can go as basic as possible, it feels more pure. So just a simple voice recorder, nothing fancy at all on there. When you know how something works, you can trust it a lot more as well. Simple photographs, simple night vision video, because it's kind of right there. Anything like the spirit box, obelisk, all of these other things are either you don't know how they work at all, so how can you trust them, or they, like a spirit box, they're an obelisk or a spirit box, they're throwing chaos at you, and then it's up to you to try to find heads or tails of it. And really what it's usually doing is forcing you to create a narrative that isn't necessarily there. And I don't trust that at all. Listen, I can see it being fun, and it's definitely TV friendly because things are actually happening. But when you can keep it as pure as possible, as low tech as possible, that is what I am really into the most. I mean, taking still photos, ideally with film, but who does that anymore? But that, again, that's something that you have the negative to back it up, because it's never gone in through a computer. It is just purely right there. And of course, as the cliche saying is, the best piece of equipment you have is your own body, of sensing changes in temperature, hearing something, seeing something, feeling the electricity in the air as you're getting goosebumps or your hair is standing up. That is the best piece of equipment there is. Okay. Thank you for sticking it out through this long chat about the creative process and what I'm working on and why I'm working on and what's going on behind the scenes. Any questions or comments, please share them. And if you are working on anything, I want to know about that too. If you are coming up against any brick walls or challenges or obstacles, let's talk about it. Let's get through what can be a fun but also very challenging process, making something, creating a project together. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.